What's going on, guys? I'm down here in the great state of Texas, where our Lord Jesus was born. I'm visiting some family and coming to the end of it. I'm drinking a beer. Only one, though. We're not doing anything crazy, but kind of going through it down here, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what it is. It's been raining the entire time and we haven't done anything on the lake. But coming down here, I've been noticing that my social muscle, like my social battery is pretty much tiny. Or maybe my social muscle for just certain types of conversation. But most of what, I take that back. I've been able to have some decent conversations about things that I genuinely enjoy talking about with my brother and my father and my stepbrother. But I think it's been made apparent to me on this trip that I have changed quite drastically, and it could be all the semen in my balls and my brain. Not quite sure what the reason is, but I've changed quite drastically in my ability to talk to women and be interested in the things that they normally talk about. Now, these women are my family members. None of them are, any romantic relationships or anything like that. Like, these are just my family. But even so, perhaps even more because of that, it becomes very difficult to talk with them about anything. I find that they generally are not really talking about anything too interesting. And I feel that there were quite a bit of people that came over on the 4th of July and a lot of people that I didn't really know. And I made absolutely no effort to engage in conversation with them, which there was one point where they were all down at the dock for a few hours chatting and drinking and watching the kids play, and I just kind of sat in the house because, like I said, I live a pretty solitary lifestyle, and I like it that way, and I don't really talk to many people on a daily basis, more than a couple sentences. So you get down here and you got people surrounding you. Hey, how you been? What you been doing? Blah, 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 blah. And you have that conversation about 10 different times, and you get to a point where you're just like, you try to avoid almost being around people because you don't, lest you engage in another, hey, how's it been? How you been doing? So where are you living? Where you currently at? Yeah, what you been doing? Yeah, we just had the kid and little Johnny, he's doing this now, and it's like, I have certain things that I know about people, and I'll ask certain questions that I find particularly interesting, like I want to know, but I find it very difficult to be at least interested at that scale, with this many people. I can probably do it when it's just one person, but with this many people, it becomes very draining for me. Like I said, my social muscles are probably atrophied to beyond the point of 99% of the population. So I also have found that it seems to take more energy to listen than it does to speak. Oftentimes I feel like the person with the highest energy in a group is not the one that's talking the most. Probably the person who's the highest energy in the group is also not the one that's silent. The one with the most energy is probably the one that's making the conversations keep going, asking the right questions, getting people to come out of their shell, sort of blossom, show you who they are, so to speak. That's probably the person with the most energy. It seems as if it takes energy to listen, because it is also a selfless act. It's not a selfish one. You're not the spotlight. You're not in the spotlight. You're not the one letting your identity sort of unfold before others, allowing your wings to spread, so to speak. You're the one who's allowing somebody else to do that, giving them the opportunity to do that. And you do this by showing interest in what they're saying, but to show interest and to ask interesting questions, you have to actually be paying attention to what they're saying, which requires not only hearing the words they're saying, but actively listening, and also processing, thinking about what they're saying. You know, you're in their world, you're putting yourself in their mind, in their shoes. So it is a very selfless act in that way. And I find that a lot of the conversations that people have nowadays, and why maybe I struggle so much with talking to people, is that there doesn't seem to be a lot of capacity to do this in most people, because I think most people are a lot lower energy than they think they are. They can hop up on stimulants or throw some nicotine pouches in their mouth or get some alcohol going. That's about the only way that they can actually conversate to begin with. You get most people sober in a room and they can't say a damn word, or they're not interested, or they're probably just terrible to be around. They're probably just a terror to be around. So that's one aspect. So first of all, you have to get them inebriated or intoxicated in some way before you can even start talking to most people. And then when you start talking to them on that level, most of the time they really just want to spread their own identity wings. They want to be the one talking. Most of the questions that they ask are only done ostensibly in pretense to show that they're somehow interested in what you have to say, or somehow interested in your life. But the real purpose, or the real intention of why they ask these questions, is to be able to ask the question that they want to answer. Ask a question that somehow they can bounce off of and somehow bring around to them where they can start to speak. Or ask a question just to give their own opinion on whatever you're saying. They don't really ask questions to assimilate information and then digest it and ask another question in order to understand you better. That's not really how most people talk. And my family members are no exception to this, unfortunately. And a lot of you may be struggling with this. You might have you might have always felt this. For me, I've always sort of felt something was always wrong with conversations, but I can never really pinpoint what it was. I couldn't pinpoint why it's so difficult to talk to people, or why so many conversations seem surface and superficial and just uninteresting altogether. How somehow it all seems like a display, a charade, some sort of show. And that there's really, there are a lot of words, being spoken, but nothing's actually being said. And and for the longest time, I sort of knew something was wrong, but I was actually still sort of part of the problem. I was not a person I felt like I could listen better than most, but I was still a person who very much probably wanted to speak more than I wanted to listen. might still be the case, but obviously there's no problem with speaking. There's a time to speak, there's a time to listen, but most people, they don't seem to have any sort of intuitive sense how to navigate between these two. There seems to be no idea of how to traverse the terrain, or how to, the social terrain, or how to sort of understand the dynamics of any sort of conversation. And of course, the more people you enter into a conversation, I think the more surface it gets, because the more there are more eyeballs on you, more brains on you, more processing, and so it becomes it's hard to really dive into who somebody really is, because that involves trust. It involves real connection, perhaps being vulnerable, divulging parts of yourself that you don't find desirable, or that you think others will judge you for. So, but yeah. I guess I just want to make this video I guess that's what I've been thinking about this entire time. Instead of talking to people, I've been thinking about why I don't necessarily talk to these people, or talk that much, or sort of, feel like I can't really say anything to them to begin with. We wouldn't really have much to say. I'm not really interested in talking about, where I live or what I do or anything like that. At the end of the day, I'm more interested in sort of the finer details, why sort of things work, why certain things don't work, sort of the dynamics of how, I don't know, just certain things play out. It's probably going to start raining on me pretty hard, but as it has been this entire time we've been down here. But put me in social situations, I go through it, man. And I find this is probably why I struggle with, women so much, and maybe the whole idea of just so much of what men and women do feels like a surface sort of show, superficial act, a play of sorts. I've just never had a capacity to do that. And so really, that in to get with women is sort of just kind of not something that I've ever been able to do, because I don't really have a capacity to fake in any way. But there's just so much complications going on with all sort of conversations, and social interactions and conversations are a lot more complex than I think people give it credit for. But perhaps I'm just an overthinker, and I'm just being autistic about the whole thing, but I don't know. I don't really think I am. I think maybe people are just, you're just kind of stuck on a certain level, and you just want to say, most people, they feel like they have to talk. They get in a group of people and they feel like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to talk because people will judge me if I just sit in a room and I'm quiet while everybody else is doing shit. And it's like, I guess I'm at the point where I don't really care. I'm at the point where I'll be awkward. Like, I'll be the person in the group that everybody's just like, okay, that dude's a weirdo. Like, why is he just sitting there? Why is he not talking to anybody? I could give a fuck. I could give a fuck. And this is more to the point of, like, I don't really think that men and women should be talking to each other that much to begin with anyway. I just think that our brains are wired differently in general, and I really find it, the longer I let my balls fill and let the semen travel, I found it harder and harder to be able to conversate with women or care about what they're saying. And I find that other men that can sort of interact or interface or care about like sort of what the nature of what women say and what they find interesting, I find those men to just sort of be sort of cucky, sort of weak. Like, women don't seem like, the purpose of women is not to really, for the man to conversate with that mind a lot. We're not meant to conversate with the female mind a lot. It doesn't mean that we're not meant to be with females. I think that we are. I think that that connection is vital, and I think we do serve different roles, and as a team, that's where we thrive. But I don't think that the thriving is necessarily on a deep conversational level. There are certain things that, like, at certain moments during this trip, like just this morning, we had all the guys sort of talking about, you know, military warfare and nuclear warfare and drones, and talking about this and that and all this strategic stuff and economic stuff, and it was great. And then all the women were nowhere to be found. They were nowhere part of this conversation. They were all just right next to us in the dining room talking about freaking what Megan did over the summer, and what, you know, they bought this new this, and she went here, and this is where they had their wedding, and oh, I can't believe her friend did this, and they were just gossiping about all this nonsense, you know. And it's not like that's bad. That's just what women do. That's their sort of their forte. They enjoy conversations like that. But it was nice. For a moment, it felt like this I can get with. Like, this is the way that this is supposed to be. For the most part, men are supposed to be talking with men, and then women are supposed to be talking with women. And this whole like feminist modern world, it's weird because it has men interacting with women, and they're all just, everybody's kind of the same, and they're all talking with each other and blah, 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 blah. I just don't really know about that. That kind of seems a little off to me. So, that's my analysis. That's my analysis for this trip. I'm probably fucked, boys. Just too different. Don't fit in. But anyway, don't really have anything else to say. I'm gonna walk back and get soaked in the rain. I'll see you boys soon. The next video that I do will be from the comfort of my own armchair in the regular setup. Don't you worry. All right, that's it. This video.